Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to this first impressions little tour through the Nature Spirit Tarot, which is illustrated and written by Jean-Marie Herzl. I'm sorry, Jean-Marie or Jean-Marie, if I've mispronounced your name. Terrible with pronunciations, but I'm really excited to get into this deck. Actually, this was one that was sent to me by Bear & Company, which is a division, I think, of Simon & Schuster. And this was formerly an independent deck, and actually one that I looked at some time ago and then completely forgot all about. It is now available as a mass market deck, and I'm really excited to see what it looks like up close and in person. So I'm really excited to be able to just take a little tour, see what we think. I will admit that when they first reached out to me to ask me if I wanted to review this one, I was like, yes, absolutely. And then like a long time went by. And then I was completely surprised when it showed up on my doorstep. So since then, I have actually acquired several nature-y decks. So I may end up being pickier about this than I might have otherwise. So I felt like that was fair to say up front that I'm a little saturated in the nature-y deck department. So this one may have to wow me for me to consider keeping it in my collection, but I'm still really excited to take a tour through this deck and see what it has to offer. So with that said, let's get into it. So it looks like, is this a sleeve? Oh, it's like a drawer. Okay, I was like, what's happening? But yeah, it's a drawer. It is very glossy on the box, but it is a nice sturdy sleeve here. It's not like flimsy. And you pull it out of the sleeve like that, and you have the guidebook sitting here on top. I'm guessing it's a split deck underneath. Yeah, it is. So I will say, not a fan of this. I wish printers would never do this because oftentimes the cards just they don't mesh well together. It's like this stack and this stack are printed individually. And when I first got this in, I did open this up to take the plastic wrap off of everything and then put it away and set it aside until I have time to do the walkthrough. So I forgot since then, but now I'm seeing it all over again. And I'm like, oh yeah, Trey, we don't like this. Don't do this. Please don't do this. I don't know very many people that do like it actually. But I will say one thing I'm very excited about is how freaking substantial this guidebook is. Oh, and it's full color. So we'll get into that in a little while. It looks like it is 183 pages, including the About the Author page. So pretty substantial stuff. That's exciting. I'm going to set that to the side for now. And let's get the cards out. So it is a like plastic, feels sturdy actually, like firm, like not super like flimsy, squishy plastic. Like when I push on it, it doesn't have a lot of give. It feels very, like it feels nice. So for those of you who like to keep your stuff in their box, that will be nice to see. All right, the actual cards themselves, let's see how if they all seem to be cut the same size. There is a little bit of a difference in the second pile, as I suspected. It's pretty slight. And again, I'm kind of primed for that because you can see here, there's just an ever so slight difference in size because of course these two separate halves would have been printed and cut separately from one another. And there are tolerances and natural variances within whenever you're cutting something, right? So it's better if, in my opinion, if everything's run and cut at the same time to go into the same spot in the box. But that's been my experience. There's usually just a slight variance. It's so slight, though, that once the deck is shuffled, it probably won't be that noticeable. But with that said, also, can we just take a moment right now, when there's very little on the table, to appreciate the stunning cloth behind this deck. I'm going to try, by the time this video comes out, I'm going to try to make sure that Peggy has some of these up in her shop because holy cow, is this beautiful. And I don't know if you can see in this lighting. I have to gush for a second because at the time I'm filming this, we just got this cloth today. Okay, today. But there's little sparkly, like shimmery bits in the moon and in the leaves, and it just has this gorgeous, and in the water here, and it has this gorgeous, like moonlit effect. It's breathtaking. Anyways, okay, back to the deck. Back to the deck, Lisa. Focus. I'm just very excited. It was a fun find, and we took all they had left, which wasn't much. But hey, like that's how fabric works. You got to get it while the getting's good. Okay, let's take a look at the backs. These are fun, not my favorite ever, but they're nicely done. They are symmetrical, so you can read reversals. The paper stock itself feels average, I guess you could say. It feels thin and it feels coated, not laminated. It doesn't feel particularly substantial or particularly sturdy, but it does feel like average tarot stock thickness, right? Like just common, nothing spectacular, but it doesn't feel like paper either. It's like just a little bit more snap. Okay, with all the production things out of the way, let's get into the card by card, flip through, walk through. I'll share some of my thoughts as we go through. First off, I kind of like this font at the bottom. And one other thing, so this is just a weird, like, picky thing that probably doesn't matter to anybody but me. I'm not a fan of the fact that the borders at the top are rounded and kind of match the roundedness of the corners of the card. But at the bottom, the corners of the border are sharp, which is in contrast to the roundedness of the cut of the card. That just bothers me. I wish that that line work was rounded or the whole thing was straight. Like I wish it picked a lane, I guess is the best way to say that. But on the other hand, I don't know if I'd have liked that either. So maybe I'm just being picky, probably just being picky. I mean, I did say in the beginning, I was probably going to be picky. I'm going to try not to though, because this deck does look very nicely done. Last thing I forgot to mention, this does appear to be a satin coating. So it doesn't appear like it is high gloss, but it's also not perfectly matte. So again, it's average, standard, kind of fair there. All right, back to it. I'm not going to try to identify plants and animals. I say that now, but I may change my mind if I can really clearly tell what something is. But what jumps out at me right away from this Fool is that we have a very prominent animal, bird, and we have a very prominent plant. So right away, that tells me that I hope it's that way throughout the entire deck. But if it is, then this would be a hybrid between an animal deck and a plant deck and actually covers both territories. Another deck I know of that does this, but has people featured in it as well, is the Green Witch Tarot, which is a Llewellyn deck and has figures and then also has a plant and an animal as part of the symbology of every card, which is really cool. But this one seems focused in on the plant and the animal, which is great. So here again, we have this big fern. We have an owl for our magician card. Nope, that's not an owl, is it? See, I said I wasn't going to animal identify, and this is why I shouldn't try. This is why I shouldn't try. There's a dragonfly here. It might be some kind of bird of prey, like a falcon or something. And then ferns. This is an owl. Yep. This would be, right off the bat, I'll tell you one thing, and I'm excited that there's a big guidebook because this would be an excellent deck to study because you get to, it looks like, study the animals, study the plant. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself, but I do like that aspect. I also like the aspect that it's not just like a Rider-Waite-Smith clone with a bird or an animal plunked into the scene, if that makes sense. It seems like it's depicting the natural world in every card. It seems very well done in that way, and I really appreciate that. The Emperor. Some crystals there. That's exciting. I wonder if the crystals are in the guide. Okay, I want to cheat. Are the crystals mentioned in the description of the Emperor in the guidebook? Because that'd be really freaking cool. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to get ahead of us. We'll look at the guidebook in more detail in a minute, but I did want to highlight this right away because this is super cool. So in the meaning for the card, you get your description of the Emperor card and kind of what it means. Then you have information about the animal. So in this case, the Indian peafowl. Then you get information about the plant, which in this case is the Ram's Head Lady's Slipper Orchid, which is very specific. We're not getting a generic plant here, right? We're getting something very specific. Then we have information on the symbols. So we have information on the orb and the scepter. And then we have a section here talking about topaz, which is the crystal that we see here. So that's incredibly exciting. It makes me wonder if there's a crystal in every card or just in that one. Nope, there's not a crystal in every card. So in this one specifically, you get information about all the relevant information on the card. Again, that tells me this would be an excellent deck. I said duck. Actually, at least I didn't say the other thing. But this would be an excellent deck for studying because there's a lot to dive into. And if you're really excited about that idea, this deck could give you a lot of something really meaty to chew on and deep dive into. Here we have our Hierophant. I love that we have a sun and a moon key here. I think that's really cool. And that is a cardinal, I'm pretty sure. Love that. And then we've got, okay, it looks like, I know those are lilies, and it's usually roses and lilies in the Magician card, but I'm curious, is that poppies? See, it's making me curious, which I think that's the cool thing about a deck like this, is that it really, if it makes you curious about what's happening in the card and like why it's there, because you can tell that everything's chosen with purpose, right? Nothing's just slapped into the card because it's cute, right? Like it's in there because it has a meaning. So that is Northern Cardinal. Oh my gosh. Okay, Wild Prairie Rose. And those are Western White Trilliums. And I should have known that. Funny little side personal story. When Peggy and I first met, she took me on this really lovely, really super romantic little date. And we went to this park and there was a whole field of trilliums, like these white trilliums, just like this, a whole field of them. And we took photos. If I could find the photos, I'll actually put them up on the screen for a second because we were so young then. Oh my God. I'll put them on the screen. It was such a like sweet romantic moment to like find this like out of the way little field of flowers. And like, that's one of the things she took me there to see. Like it was so special. Anyways, okay. Trilliums. That just gave me all the feels. Oh my God. Okay. Anyways, let's move on. So here we have the lovers. That's such a great segue. Can I just point that out for a moment? It was an excellent segue. I didn't do that on purpose, but that's pretty great. Anyways, this looks like wisteria to me, but I'm not going to look it up because we'll be here all day if I do that. But I love that we have the intertwined snakes. I think that's a really cool depiction of the lovers, and typically we wouldn't see that in that way, but I love the spiral. I love the caduceus that they're forming together. I love that. I love that. I think that's great. Love the crocodiles or alligators. Oh gosh, this is why I don't identify animals. But I love that in the chariot card. I love the yin yang symbol here. There's a lot happening. The nerdy part of me that is like, this would just be a really fun deck to study is like kind of having a whole moment here. I know that there are other decks that I'm going to want to study first. So I still don't think this deck is particularly winning me over as something I would want in my own collection at this point, but that is only because I have other plant and animal-based decks that I'm really, really enamored with and want to give my attention to. But this is really well done. This is the strength card. I guess you can see that. The hermit card. I'm just loving that the plant and the animal energies are front and center in these cards. Like, look at this Wheel of Fortune. Not a fan of that particular spider, but that's okay. I get the premise here. Super interesting. I love that we have like the seasons, or at least it feels like the seasons kind of. I guess it's not seasons. These are different herbs. I can't even talk. It just seems like there's a lot. And again, whenever I see a deck like this where it's clear that everything is put on the card on purpose with intention to signify something specific, it's very exciting to me because I feel like that's one of the things that's spectacular about tarot as a system is that it's so rich with symbols that you can use different things to show those symbols, to show the meaning, especially to show your own, as an author, your own interpretation of that meaning. It's just very exciting and stimulating to me. But plants and animals are definitely not an area of strength for me, or one that I feel particularly committed to spending the kind of time I think it would take to get to know and make the most of a deck like this. I do feel like the imagery is hinting at the meaning of the card in the same way that the Rider-Waite-Smith does. And if you know the Rider-Waite-Smith really easily, I think that you could translate that information to a card like this, where we see the actual skeleton of the bird here, because we still have our sunrise, like we still have a white rose or a white flower here. We have a lot of the familiar symbols in a slightly different interpretation. But I feel like this deck will be the most helpful or beneficial or the most rich for people who take the time to really study it and get to know it. Because there's just so much happening in these cards. Ooh, that's a spooky devil. I think it might be some kind, it almost looks like it's some kind of a lure or anglefish kind of thingy, like some kind of deep water fish. Really interesting. The Tower. The Star. Love the moon phases on the pillars there. The Sun. Again with the crystal, love that. I love that the crystals are showing up here and there. Like anybody that's really like a green witch or a tarot reader that's really got a head for plants, or who's really excited about working with plants or the natural energies of the world, whether it's plants, animals, crystals. It's just, this has got a very earthy kind of feel to it. And I think that's super cool. So we're into the suits now. We have the Ace of Cups and we have these calla lilies. So we have the Ace and the 2, and I'm trying to figure out, are these pippish or not? And I want to say initially, just off these 2 cards, they look a little pippish, but I feel like all the richness of the plant meanings is going to boost that. Because yeah, here we have 3 calla lilies, but we also have these 3 birds hanging out. Are these peahens? I don't know. Again, I shouldn't try. But hanging out there, so you get a nod to that gathering energy. We have a snail here in the 4 of calla lilies. I think it's more like a hybrid between a pippish kind of deck and a more scenic deck, because there's other things happening in the card, and the arrangement of the calla lilies here is reminiscent of the meaning of the card. Like here it's our snail who's looking at these 3 calla lilies and missing the 4th. So you get that Rider-Waite-Smith imagery. Same thing here. We have 5 calla lilies, but 3 are tipped and 2 are upright with little clovers and other plants inside of them. So you get that feeling like the Rider-Waite-Smith image is here. It's kind of tucked away, but it's not dominating the card, which is really cool. The 7. No, that's the 6. That's the 7. Yeah, very Rider-Waite-Smith there, I feel like. The 8, 9, Caterpillar, sorry, I just had to take a moment on that one. The Swans and the 10. That is a funny looking bug in the Page of Cups. He's kind of cute. The Knight of Cups. Is that a mallard? I think it's a mallard. Any of you guys who are really good at plant and animal identification are like, oh my God, Lisa, this is painful to watch. That's okay though. We're just going to show you all the cards. Queen, King. Oh, Ace of Wands. We have a ladybug. We have crystals here. All these ladybugs flying. I love that energy. Ooh, so the crystals are going to feature, wait, are these going to be wands or swords, actually? Oh yeah, wands. It said wands. Okay. So the ace is titled, and then the rest just have their numbers. So there's the 2, the 3. These are feeling less pippish than the first couple cards of the cup suit, just in their arrangement. The 4, the 5. I think it's pretty safe to say that this is following the Rider-Waite-Smith tradition for sure. The 6, 7, this is great. 8. This would be, I feel like, a very calming deck to work with, a very slow deck, one that has a lot to teach you. And this is also the kind of deck that I feel like gets very easily overlooked with all the flashy, like fancy, modern kind of decks that come out. I feel like decks like this that have this very like rich meaning, slow energy, invitation to learn. I feel like these kinds of decks often get left by the wayside and kind of glossed over or fly under the radar. I don't know how many analogies can I use in a sentence because I think we're just used to going for the shiny and the easy. And in a way, this deck is not as easy. It doesn't just hand it to you like other decks can and sometimes do. That Ace of Swords is something. I love that there's crystals that pop up here and there. And now I know that I can trust the guidebook to tell me what those mean, right? To be fair, I haven't looked at a minor arcana, have I? I think I've only looked at majors so far, but still. I guess my point is that if the idea of working with plants and animals really excites you, there may be fancier decks or decks that have gotten more hype out in the community. But I feel like this is one that shouldn't be overlooked. If that is a part of your practice, if the idea of learning about plants and animals and incorporating them with tarot is exciting to you, then I feel like this is a deck you shouldn't look past because it seems like it's going to be a really substantial one. Page of Swords, Knight. I love the speed energy in that card. The Queen. Oh, I love that she's some kind of a wasp or bee or something. And the King. And then we're into the Pentacles. This is great. That looks like a daffodil. Daffodils. I'm pretty sure those are daffodils. And then a pussy willow there. Flamingo. Yeah, I just feel like this is a deck that could easily get brushed off. And I feel like it has a lot happening. I also think sometimes there's something to be said for a deck that like invites you to want to study it. I have a couple decks like that in my collection. And they're treasures, right? They're so full of depth and meaning. And is that smoky quartz? I kind of want to know, but that's okay. I guess this is my way to say that I hope decks like this don't stop being made because we're so enamored with the shinier, flashier stuff. Because I think this is the kind of thing that really contributes to our global tarot knowledge, the book of knowledge about tarot. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Oh, I love that the Queen of Pentacles is a bumblebee. And the King of Pentacles. All right, let me zoom out. As you can tell, I don't have a ton to say on the actual cards because this is not an area of strength for me in my knowledge. And if I ever feel called to study, this could be one that I consider working with. But for now, I don't feel like that's necessarily in my practice. But let's just see. So I do feel like the slight unevenness of the cards does affect the shuffle ever so slightly, but not in any way that's going to be super, super noticeable, particularly once they are broken in. But I don't know if you can tell as I shuffle. They do have a tendency to clump just a bit, and that comes from, you can see that. It's quite separated, but that comes from that slight unevenness to the cards, which is a very finicky little thing. It's not really all that big of a deal. But let's pull a card and see what the guidebook has to say as we tour the guidebook. So we have the Four of Wands. So let's take a tour through the book here real quick and see what it has to offer. But it looks quite substantial. Full color, which is very exciting. A lovely blessing to start out the book. Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I feel like just a lot of effort went into. It feels very cohesive and complete. So we have an introduction from the author. And then we have the Major Arcana. So now you can kind of see how things are laid out. You have your introduction or your information about the card itself. In the full card, it talks about Marvelous Spatule Tail Hummingbird and Heliconia Garden of Eden. Like, I mean, it's very specific about the plant, and it ties that in to the meaning of the card, which I think is pretty freaking fantastic. So here was our magician. We have a Merlin Falcon. Merlin Falcon for the magician makes so much sense. A fly agaric mushroom, which I totally overlooked, actually. I just spotted the fern. We have the western sword fern, and then an eastern pond hawk dragonfly. That's in one card. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 different things that boost the meaning of the card. And that is what I mean by saying that this card feels like it's full of richness, of depth. There's a lot you can dip into. And if you wanted to work with a deck like this magically, I feel like there's a lot of potential for that too, because you could literally work with cards that implement plant energies or animal energies that you want to work into your magic, which is also really exciting. So you can tell that it's not so rigid that like every card has to have one animal, one plant, one crystal, or anything. There's some organic flow to this. Some cards have other items that are highlighted and other cards have less, right? But it's obviously what felt substantial and meaningful for the creator, which I think is pretty great, actually. I think sometimes it gets a little formulaic and a little boxed in, but you can see as I flip just through some of these pages how it's very meaty and very in-depth. So let's take a look at the minors and check out the Four of Wands. Okay, this is all Four of Wands. Like, see what I mean about this deck being a good one for study? So here's what it says. The living staffs of the Four of Wands are planted like pillars. They represent a gateway or passage through which we are invited to step. This card bids us to acknowledge the flowering of our creativity into manifested form, which is such a beautiful sentence. Let me say that again. The Four of Wands, right? This card bids us to acknowledge the flowering of our creativity into manifested form. That is a beautiful sentence to describe the meaning of the Four of Wands in general. Deepening inner work has allowed ideas to flow into the world and take root. Our desires and dreams have been realized and they have come to fruition. It is time to celebrate our achievements. The Four of Wands speaks of celebrating a work accomplished and the success we have achieved by stepping into the flow of our creative energies. Then we have the European elder tree. Elder grows to either a tree or shrub and can be as tall as 30 feet. It prefers damp locations along the edge of woodlands. Ancient peoples created wands, flutes, and panpipes from the hollowed branches of elder, and these instruments were said to have magical properties. But the stems and branches contain a toxic alkaloid, so today such use is not recommended. Elder was also recognized for its medicinal value as far back as the Stone Age. Scientists have found evidence of its cultivation in ancient village sites in Europe. As well as having great healing powers, the elder tree is considered to be a symbol of renewal, prosperity, creativity, and regeneration. Its meanings are tied to evolution, and elder is said to be a plant of transition, continuation, and a gateway to new dimensions. It is also considered the tree of the fairy realm by the Celts. Drawn by the lovely music from elder instruments, fairies are lured to attend a celebration. Love that. That's beautiful. And then hollyhock. Showy, tall spikes of hollyhock put on a splendid display in summer. I'm assuming that's the plant here in the background of the card behind the wands there. I'm assuming that's the hollyhock. Oops, there we go. Let's not make a mess here. Hollyhock is a biennial originally from the Middle East and believed to have been taken to England from the Holy Land during the Crusades. So began the journey of hollyhock to becoming a garden favorite everywhere. Symbolically, the hollyhock represents the obtaining of our desires, coming into fruition, and the flowering of creativity. These hollyhocks are white, which represents warmth, peace, happiness, and the purity of spirit. Just beyond the arches, the hollyhock beckons us to honor our success. And then butterflies, because there are butterflies in the card. There are approximately 170,000 species of butterflies and moths in the world. They are probably one of the most treasured of all insects because of their fascinating colors and patterns and for the liberating feeling they instill in us. Butterflies are most commonly known as symbols of transformation. They also symbolize joy, lightness, and dancing on the winds of spirit. They awaken us to the importance of following the rhythm of life on our journey of transformation. Attuning to life's natural flow is key to a blessed passage along the spiritual path. I mean, that's a single card draw from this deck. Nothing to say. That it's really, really well done. So let's kind of flip through here. Oh my gosh, too much time on the computer, y'all. and see what happens at the end. Okay, so we have our pentacles. And see if there's anything else kind of lingering or tucked away in the book. Okay, so then in the back, you have a section called Classic Tarot Card Spreads. So we have an introduction, information about a 1-card draw, a 3-card draw, a horseshoe or 7-card spread, and then a Celtic cross. That is it. If you're curious, by the way, about my take on the Celtic cross, I'll try to remember to have a card linking to my video all about the Celtic cross that I did in collaboration with Dawn Michelle over at Boho Tarot. And I'll try to also remember to have her video and my video about the Celtic cross in the description box down below, since I mentioned it, because yeah, that was a fun one to do. So that, my friends, is the Nature Spirit Tarot by Jean-Marie, or Jean-Marie, I'm not sure how to say that properly, Herzl. I'm very, very pleased to see how much thought has gone into this deck. I'm not surprised. I remember, again, ages ago, watching a walkthrough of the independent version of this deck and thinking, wow, that's really, really beautiful. I remember that the cards, I think, were big. Like, they were bigger than average, maybe a little bit trickier to handle. I do feel like they work just fine in this standard tarot size, and I also could be remembering that wrong. But I remember thinking it was a really beautiful deck at the time. I remember thinking it was a very in-depth deck at the time, and I think if I was in a position to be looking at decks like, say, the Herbal Tarot or the Herb Crafters Tarot or something like this. This one would definitely be in the running for one I would consider keeping in my collection or bringing into my collection to be a part of my study of the plants. As it stands right now in my own personal collection, I do actually have a plant deck that I'm really excited to work with and get to know even better than I have already. So I don't see myself, and that one is an Oracle deck, I don't see myself bringing this into my collection or keeping it as a part of my collection, but I will update you guys after I have had some time to think about it. I do have somebody in mind, a friend of mine, who I think would really get on well with this deck if I don't. So it will find a very nice loving home if it doesn't stay with me. But again, I wanted to thank Bear & Company for sending me this deck for review so I could share it with all of you guys. It's really fun to be able to take tour. Well, it doesn't fan very nicely. It's very fun to be able to take a tour through these cards, through cards in general, and just kind of explore them, see them, peek at them, see how they're put together, see what's in them. I love geeking out on all things tarot, so this just gives me another way to do that. So yeah. Thank you all so much for hanging out with me on this tour through the Nature Spirit Tarot. As always, I will have all the relevant links down below so you can check this deck out for yourself. And that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure and click the like button. And don't forget to subscribe if you would like to see more content just like this. I do a lot of videos showcasing new decks, showcasing old decks, talking about tarot geekery and witchy things in general. So if that is up your alley, definitely be sure and subscribe. Click the little bell to be notified of all my future videos and live streams. Thank you all so much, and may your magic always shine from the inside out. Bye, guys.